Today we have a special guest. He's been on the show before, so I know a lot of you may know him. But Tim Bryson. Tim is a from Mogul. He is also an NIL educator. And Tim, how are you doing today?
Doing well, my friend. Good to see you again, and definitely a great follow-up. I think last time we spoke, I was just starting into my role, so now I have a little bit more context to be able to share, but also to learn with you as well. So excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we're gonna get into a lot of that stuff that that you have going on, but I know you're a huge Drake fan, right? So I've been seeing a lot with this. So what I want to know is what's your top three Drake albums?
Top three. First and foremost, views.
Okay,
Number two, but this is gonna be number one probably a decade from now, is a Certified Lover Boy.
okay.
And
That grew on
then
me. That grew on me, by the way.
I keep telling people they sleeping, and I would say I do like Her Loss. I do. But the more I spend time with it, bro, I really think that Scorpion.
Okay,
Scorpion's
I
also
I,
gonna age.
I feel that. That's interesting because nothing was the same. Is not on there or
Right.
Take Care, and Take Care is number one for a lot of people.
This
So
commercial,
that
that's like J. Cole's Sideline Story, Jay-Z Blueprint. I mean, like
yeah,
we know that. But
yeah,
views
gotcha.
and CLB especially,
Yeah. No, but
no question.
the crazy part is I love Scorpion. The first half of Scorpion, I love it.
hmm
I
hmm
still listen to it like canal. But so that's a little bit about you. Like I
Yeah.
know you're. I wanted to know that just so we can level set. But tell the people who you are. Give us a little bit about your background. We'll go from there.
Most definitely. So again, Tim Bryson. For those who know me, still Tim Bryson. For those who don't, I'm a Black millennial educator. And I start with that on purpose because I truly believe that my blackness, my millennial identity, and believe that education can change this world guides my mission statement to help all people identify their passion, inspire vision, and walk in purpose. I think for the purpose of our call today, my story still starts in Cincinnati, Ohio, right? I went to a private all-male Catholic Jesuit high school. In that high school, those 4 years were some of the first 4 years that I can distinctly remember encountering or at least having conversations about race and experiencing racism, right? Being able to point to examples, right? So being called Black Tim, we had a white Tim and a Black Tim. Like 10 years later, I'm like, yo, what? Like
Yeah.
that would never happen in 2023. Like never. But 16 years ago, in 2007, it was a real thing. But nevertheless, high school was cool, right? The college prep school. I knew academics was always more important, but still played soccer. Got cut, started running track, which led to my path to being a track and field athlete at Coastal Carolina University. As I continue to say, as I continue to refine my own storytelling about my own self, I tell people, right, being 10 and a half hours away from home, I'm 18 years old, as a college athlete, at Myrtle Beach, like it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun took place in my first year at Coastal Carolina. So I decided to transfer to the University of South Carolina to really focus on my academics, but I transfer orientation to your point, Fred, that you talk about pretty often on social media. Was when I found out I could not be both an athlete in my sport and pursue the degree that I wanted to pursue. It was literally a transfer orientation that I realized this, that I found out about this, and I had to make a decision on the spot. That decision, though, I still think about track and what could have been. Yeah, I wouldn't have been an Olympian by no means, but it would have been competitive. Was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because at that point I dedicated spending my career being as close to sport as I possibly could be. I started off as an athletic training student, which I got my degree in at South Carolina. I continued my degree and my education career at Ohio State, where I got my master's in higher education student affairs, where I was trying to figure out how to create a student affairs environment in sport. I got to work at the NCAA national office in the leadership development, right? Training athletes, coaches, and staff on how to be better, air quote, better leaders, right? And develop their leadership philosophy and storytelling ability from their own seat. Got to do that at Maryland as the inaugural program director for athlete career development. So again, helping athletes transition, similar to what I did prematurely, at least what I had hoped for or expected. I mean, now I get to be in this NIL space, right? A space that is literally brand new. In any audience, right, whether it's one person or 1,000 people I get to talk to, I'm like, yo, like, we are legit living in history, like, in more
Right.
ways than we can even think or imagine. And people are gonna look back and say, oh, Mogul and Tim Bryson did this, or yo, Fred Underwood was integral in building this black athlete, black business marketplace in 2023. Like, people, we don't realize that,
Right.
right? And so, in addition to my role, my full time role, also a PhD student at the University of Maryland. I'm a research focused on internationalization and in athletics with a deliberate focus on international college athlete experience. As you mentioned, I love Drake. LeBron is also my GOAT. We can say that for the end of this conversation because we can talk about that for a whole other episode. And I'm just glad to
Yeah.
be here, man. So again, I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So Tim, I heard you say we don't fear the future, we shape it. And
Mm.
so, how is Tim shaping the future of NIL?
That was a great question, bro. That was a great question.
You did a little
I
research.
know, nah, you a basketball fan. You did do research. And that quote, I believe, comes from Barack Obama, watching one of his State of the Union addresses. But you seen that picture with LeBron and Wade throwing that lob, and what you just did was
Hmm.
throw a lob that I'm about to throw down, bro.
Let's
So let
do
me
it.
tell you this. Let me tell you this, right? And I tell people this all the time. There is not an organization with an NIL educator that has been a former college athlete that is a former athletic training, excuse me, certified athletic trainer,
Hmm.
has worked and spent time at the NCAA, is pursuing their PhD, so continue learning in the formal sense for sure, who has worked on a college campus with college athletes, preparing them for life after competition. There's no one. There's no one
Right.
except Tim Bryson. I want to be very clear about that. And I leave with that with athletes, coaches, and staff members because that's genuinely the perspective, the mindset, the framework that I'm coming into this work. It's not a marketing solution. It's not a communication solution. It's human and student development. And my
Hmm.
background and my educational training is in human and student development.
Right.
What we're talking about now in NIL is not, again, it's nothing new to the world. It's new to the college sports space, particularly the college athlete space,
Right.
right? I mentioned some of the training that I've done. I mentioned some of the credentials, if you will, just dropping that for us to share and revel in. But I've also done NIL deals myself. I mean, the sweatshirt I'm wearing now is from an NIL deal I did with Honest Rags on last year. And so the perspective that I'm bringing is not based off of research. It's not based solely on like, what I think. It's based on being a black millennial man in 2023. It's literally based on the lived experiences I've had, the educational training I continue to gain and learn and grasp from, both in formal settings like classroom, right? But also informal settings like the one that we're on now. But then three, like what makes sense? And I think too often times, particularly in the NIL space, we're trying to think of this like home run solution for all athletes, and it's simply not true.
Right.
As you saw on social, I was just at Rose College in Memphis. Shout out to the Lynx, and there was a person that I'm not gonna put this stuff out there, but a person that asked me, right, administrator asked me like, yo, like essentially what's different here? Like, what do we know here? And again, I'm like, we have not seen what's different or what a best practice is. And again, I put that in quotes because it's different every school. Because what NIL looks like, both at your school, your city, and across different sports and different athletes, is different than the Ohio State, the South Carolina, the Maryland, the Jackson. Like it's all different.
Yep.
I think and I told them the same thing, right? Thinking about how I'm shaping the future is helping people to understand and identify what they're passionate about, helping them to understand like what change you want to see within this space, particularly from your own identity, from your own interests, from your own passions, like from where you see the world going, right? And how you want to shape and act and contribute to that space.
Hmm.
And then walking in that, right? Like
Right.
legit walking in purpose, like going to get that. And I think for the
Right.
first time ever, we've seen for the first time ever with the NIL space, NIL with the opportunity for athletes to take ownership of their learning,
Right.
take ownership of their learning. D1 and D2, again, of course, tied to athletic money in some way, in many more ways than one. And so their schedule, if you will, their commitments, like their orientation to the college environment is tied with this this athletic money that they're being directed on what to do, when to eat, etc. D3 in a lot of ways, and I said this that D3 is going to lead the way in NIL space. Not trying to be funny, but being honest, because D3 athletes they're not tied to athletic money, and they had to take ownership of their learning in a lot of different ways than D1 D2 D1 and D2 athletes have to do so. The reason I bring that up is because now we're at a place where I get to encourage athletes. I'm like, yo, look, you're doing a lot in this other space, right? Whether it's competition or school, that's great. But whatever you think you want NIL to be and to do, like that's what I need you to focus on. That's what I need you to own. Because for me, how I believe I'm shaping the future again is not by training or experience anything else. It's that literally, like I have um, done these things not to brag or not to seek recognition, but looking back, I'm like, yo, I was put in this position because of
Right.
now. I
Right.
was I had to choose my thing because of now, right?
Right.
I had and I've done it. I'm still doing it. And so I
Right.
think that's the exciting part that I get thrilled to talk about in a lot of ways, but also to being like, oh yeah, like this brand, like when you were
Right.
struggling doing LinkedIn back in 2015 on Ohio State's campus, like
Right.
it was because you're doing LinkedIn U sessions now, 8 years
Right.
later. So
No,
I
that, no,
appreciate that question.
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. I mean, in a sense, he's saying he's him, right? So,
Straight up,
you know what I'm
straight
saying?
up, bro.
Everything that you've done up to this past, and that's with everybody. Like you can think of the athlete, whoever. your experiences is what is going to mold you and be prepare you for what you're going to be doing now. And
Hmm.
if you don't look at look at those past experiences and go pull from them, then you can't be prepared for the present. So I think that's really big, and that's going to help you help other athletes. And I think that's
Hmm.
perfect. Yep. So looking back from you started with Mogul last year, so you're coming up on a year, I think, of
Yeah,
being with Mogul. So looking back, what are your thoughts on the progress that you all have been making to make the ideal environment for the student athlete?
it's good. It's a really good question. Again, bro, I think the biggest thing is our focus, continued focus on underrepresented athletes across identity, but also institutional types. So again, we saw our D2 all athlete deal that went on the state in Minnesota, obviously Rose College recently in Memphis. And we also partnered with universities such as Lincoln U up in PA, Holy Cross, just name a few others. But I think we've truly taken an approach that is focusing on athletes that have continued to be overlooked, underrepresented, and silenced, both in the NIL space, but also higher education overall, which is something I'm super proud about. Another thing I'm proud about is we continue to be innovative, right, in the brands that we work with, but also how we can choose to educate. So I mentioned before, right, I'm shaping the future of NIL just by being present, which I think is a blessing within itself. Thank you, God. Shout out to Jesus for that. But I think what we're doing from a athlete advisory council perspective and truly incorporating and allowing our education curriculum to be reflected by the lived experiences and the evolving needs of college athletes is super important. But then the last piece I'll say is the podcast, right? So I don't think we had dropped our podcast at that point when I talked to you before,
Hmm.
but being able to have a platform to where we have athletes, ads, hoping to get coaches on. So if you're a coach listening to this episode, hit me up. We'd love to have you on the pod to talk more about it. I think we need more coach voice in the NIL space in
Right.
particular. But having a podcast that we funnel through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, that is a place there where athletes can access information and knowledge 24/7. I think it's also been beneficial because again, to this point, I think we've seen people host podcasts. I
Right.
don't think any have been NIL education specific. But one thing I forgot to mention earlier, particularly about the NIL, shaping the future of NIL, but also where we are now, which I want to make sure we talk about your project you got going on. It's
Yep.
all white people.
Yep.
It's all white people, and I'm not scared to say that. It's the truth, right? We need more truth tellers in this space. All white people talking to the same white people. We need
Right.
more diverse, racially
Right.
diverse, ethnically diverse voices, representation, presence in the NIL space. We know
Yep.
that because
Yep.
the people these white people are talking about are black. Are they not
Right.
white?
Right. Right.
So how you know?
Yep.
Legit, how you know? So I think that's my biggest frustration, but also how I think moguls continue to lead the way. It's like, yo, like I'm gonna be very explicit in saying like what is and what ain't.
Right.
And what is what we've seen, and what ain't is like what's not happening, but what's something that I'm taking personal ownership and commitment to be like, oh, like we going they may not be doing that, and they'll catch on sooner than later,
Right.
hopefully. But Tim Bryson and Mogan gonna be doing that, and I'm
Right.
staying firm on that for sure.
No, and that's the inspiration behind what I'm doing is like, you see all these athletes and the athletes that are getting these deals and the athletes that are that they are representing, they don't look, you're not having people that come in that look like them that can speak their language, or they're trying to get them to do this gimmicky type stuff. They're trying to get
Mm-hmm.
them to they can't be their authentic self. So like matching up the brands that they want to work with the athletes that are going out and they're making they're trailblazing in their sport is just, it just makes the most sense, right?
Hmm.
So it just makes sense to bring those two together. So
See,
it's a win-win for our community, right?
oh, for sure. But again, the broader community might say, Fred, you being too loud. And I'm saying, Fred, I need you to be louder, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Because again, and it's with anything, I think that's the thing that, speaking generally about black people, I love black people, just put on my story today. But like with black people, it's like we've had to figure out the game. We've had to finesse our entire life to figure out what works, what don't work. Some of
Hmm.
us may have gone through this struggle, if you will, or like having to uh, um, minimize ourselves to fit in the white places, to fit in the white
Hmm.
spaces. Then we come out of that even more pro-black after the fact. Like
Right,
right now, again, the people that have the rules and are playing the game are white people. And that's just
right,
what it is. And we've seen it
right,
both white people and white structures that continue to persist in college sport and U.S. higher
right,
education. That's not a secret. Again, those
right,
who've done educate any sort of training education, they know that. Once and as we continue to learn more about, whoa, this is why that deal happened, or this
right.
person, that person is. Now we know the rules to the game.
Bro, it's
Come
it's
on
it's it's
now.
crazy because it's like we've been put in the game that we weren't taught. Like we're playing, but we don't know the rules, right? So we just in
Ex-
here. That's why we have to. That's why we're finessing. That's why we're figuring it out. That's how we're doing all these things. But once we understand the rules of the game, man, okay, well now the game comes easier. Now we ain't gotta cut corners. We ain't gotta try to be so fast and
Yep.
moving fast. We can
Yep.
move slowly in our purpose, and like you said, be one in our purpose, and be authentically ourselves.
Yep. Like I said,
Yep. And
louder,
I even
louder,
think back to
louder,
myself,
louder.
right? Right. You took it off of just being an athlete, right? Like me, my job, my corporate job is AT&T. So I've had to work at a Fortune 10 company and go in those spaces and like, okay, I'm the only one from HBCU here. Like going through a
Hmm.
program, and I'm going to school with all these these people from all these other programs, and I'm from a HBCU, but I'm ranking second in my class. But it's like, okay, I'm coming in and I'm not having the same resource. I'm not having the same connections. But you're still, fighting to be authentically yourself. So the same thing with these athletes. Like they can come in and they can get these deals being themselves because they can match themselves with brands that allow them to be themselves.
Exactly. And I said sooner than later, they're going to take ownership and really figure out that they're the ones that's in the driver's seat.
Yep.
Right? They're the ones that make the rules. And I think it's going to be an interesting time, probably 2, 3 years from now, in particular, to where we have a cohort of athletes that have gone through 4 or 5 years in the NIL space because they have a
Mhm.
whole different experience than any other former athlete prior to them. So where they're then teaching current athlete, the formers are teaching the current athletes, like, yo, here's how you don't do this other thing, like go Instagram DM, right? Go LinkedIn, go TikTok. That's again, the rules are still being written, and until the rules have been what's the word I'm looking for, solidified in a way
Yep.
not that's concrete, but they didn't have guidelines in regards to and restrictions in regards to how athletes can move. Because again, we're still waiting on that from the NCAA as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
We gonna continue to see fluid motion to like, oh, here's the game, Joker
Yep.
Tuesdays. That's right. What's up? That's right. Like, let's
But you know
go.
what's so great about the space that we're in right now is these athletes are going to be the ones that are quote unquote writing the rules. Like it doesn't have to be white people are giving us, hey, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to do it. Like people, like you said, people are asking for a cookie cutter. It's not cookie cutter approach. This is like they are going to be able to set the foundation and set the set the standard for what's going to be done in the future. So, like I
That's
said, it's an amazing time to be a part of
it is, but that's a flip from the current structure of college sports where coaches, ads, I mean admins have power. Athletes are starting to realize the power that they have and the influence they have in their legit lived experience as an athlete. And as we see those athletes continue to embrace that, I think to your point, then we'll see if the flip. But right now, people up top, right in the org chart, are still trying to maintain control, surveillance,
it.
etc.
Yep. And that's an interesting point because like the thing is, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, there's so many moving parts. You have marketplaces, you have agents, you have athletic directors, you have coaches, you have
Mm-hmm.
players, you have all these different things of all these entities pulling, okay, who's going to jockey for power? What's your thoughts on that and how to create an environment that is simplistic for the athlete to maneuver around?
Yeah, man, I think what that's a good question. You're asking some really good questions, bro. And I think one, because you ask good questions. I think two, again, we have more time to really like evaluate the scene, which is also
Right.
exciting. Um, the interesting thing about this is that because people ask, like, what's the future of college sport? And I personally don't see a future to where both men's football and both men's and women's basketball are all part of the same umbrella, at least governed by the NCAA. I know
Mhm.
football has their own championship with the CFP, whatever, but like under the same umbrella. So I can see football doing their own thing and basketball staying with the NCAA. I think every people has mentioned like the whole commissioner model. I can see that for
Mhm.
sure. But I say that to say with the NIL space, the one thing, the thing that people are holding on to is amateurism
Mhm.
and which is tied to eligibility. That's literally it.
Right. Right.
That's it. And so if we get to a point to where amateurism isn't a thing anymore, obviously that
Mhm.
destroys the whole college sport model, which I think some people are like, yeah, let's do it. Other people are like, we just want to see athletes play for fun. And in that case, I'm like, go watch high school athletes. You know what I mean? Go watch middle school athletes if you want,
Right.
whatever. But then two, from a eligibility standpoint, it's like what are we worried? What are we concerned about? Right? Are we
Right.
concerned about this free market, free trade, free transfer? Like what are we really concerned about? What are we really talking about? And again, let's name that so then we can make decisions based off that.
Right.
But I do think, and this is going to be an interesting thing too, from both from an NIL sense, but also from a college sports sense, is that the football piece is one thing, especially with the other USC and UCLA coming to the Big Ten. Shout out to the Gamecocks, by the way. The other piece with just about to say something. Oh, the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
them lowering the rules, right? So like getting
Rules.
rid of
Yep.
this 1 year, that could open up some different opportunities, especially
Right.
with the G League and everything else booming in their own way.
Yep.
We're seeing increased football leagues with the Rock with XFL, which is actually pretty
Right.
entertaining. Saw that last week or two. That can be an opportunity where athletes potentially or high school athletes potentially go to train and then go, you know.
Right.
So I think it's wide open, bro, and I don't think that. unt- I don't believe that. How to explain this? I don't believe that the NCAA in particular, right? Understanding the NCAA is a governing body, has the athletes needed, necessary, and required to help make and drive those decisions. I think one,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want them to be, but then two, again, looking at the structures, which is why I said my experience with the NCAA is more than just the logo and those four letters, but
Mm-hmm.
like how it's structured. The voice of the athlete body is SAC. SAC at 98% of the schools are, guess what, ran by white women Olympic athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The money that's driving the NCAA is not white women Olympic athletes.
Right.
Could be, but it's not. Right now, it's not. Get a buck. And
Right.
so, are we including men's basketball athletes on that thing? Are we including women's basketball? Are we including the black ones? Are we including men's football players on that thing?
Yep.
Are we including the Olympians who are competing in track? Like, how are we truly being inclusive of the athletes that are driving what the current model continues to look like, and not simply base athlete feedback off SAC structures and SAC governing bodies that are not representative nor reflective of the undergraduate student body, let
Right.
alone the population across the NCAA. I think
Right.
again that's the part that people miss. Is like, yeah, SAC said this, but who's part of? Let's look at the SAC roster
Right. Right.
and not just the names, the pictures. Let's pull it up and let's
Right.
really let's really unpack this. So the white SAC people said this, that's fine, but what did the international athletes say? Because clearly,
Yep.
again, from the NIL perspective, no one in that room had any sort of thought and or care in regards to how this is going to affect
Wasn't even
international
a thought.
athletes. So which is why I say I think from an NIL perspective, it's like, okay, like there could definitely be opportunity to for athletes to flip this model and help admins understand their I'm sorry, help admins help college athletes understand their ownership, their power, etc. But as
Mm-hmm.
we've seen, and Dr. Baker talked about this on my podcast, people are going to protect their power and privilege at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
She said that people are going to protect their power and privilege at all costs. Until people, right? It's like reparations. Until and whiteness in general.
Yep.
Until you say, you know what, like it's you, it's on you, we're gonna continue to see this system to where athletes are continue to given a little bit of leeway, whether that's creating a black athlete organization
Mm-hmm.
or hosting a Black History Month or getting the t-shirts, but not enough to really flip and overturn what's currently happening to truly reform and then replace with something that's that's rooted in equity, that's rooted in justice, and is guided by collective and inclusive athlete voice.
Yeah, and that's interesting because of the fact that, like you just said, like to me, what's going to be missing is are they going to, the more the deals, you see the big deals, you see the Bryce Youngs, you see the
Mm-hmm.
Strauss, you see those deals, and so now they're chasing that, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
chasing the big deals, but if they don't really like truly understand how they can gain some equity into what the decisions that are being made, then they'll just be like, oh well, yeah, you're giving us this opportunity to get these deals, and now everybody's going to chase the deal versus chasing what gives them control and power, and they won't get it.
That's a good. So, and again, this is where it gets interesting though, because, and which is why I say I think by 2 years from now, maybe three, because now you got high school and even eighth graders who are watching this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So their questions during the recruiting process, assuming the models are the same, are different. Their ability to create content, right, and show up on digital social media platforms is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to think, like, particularly with I mean, like the diehard Gen Z getting the higher ed, but also having former athletes who want to help, like Sean Clifford with Penn State, for example.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's like, yo, like I've seen it again, I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you can Singleton or whoever else. Here's how you can really navigate this NIL piece, both while you're an athlete, but when you come out of it. I think we're going to see more and increased numbers of former athletes, especially more high profile ones, start their own NIL, either education services, agencies, etc. Because they're the ones, as you said, they lived it.
Yep. Yep.
They done it. Like
Yep.
they legit done it.
And to your point, that's how we get more black faces in these spaces. Is that
Exactly.
the former athletes are going to begin to get in these spaces and opportunities, and they can speak the language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what goes away is the quote unquote culture vultures that come into this industry, and they come in and they're like, oh yeah, I have a financial background, and
Mm-hmm.
now I want to take this financial background and get you these deals, right? But realistically, what needs to be done is somebody who can allow them to be authentic and understand them and speak the same language as them
Mm-hmm.
and help them get their deals. They can understand the rigors of being a college athlete, and they know what it takes. They know what okay, if you are being authentic and you're going after opportunities that they're just natural to you, then it's not a job. You can still focus on being an athlete, to being the best athlete that you could be. But if you're chasing deals and I gotta post again, I gotta do this, I gotta send this post, and it's not authentic, then now you're distracted and you're just searching for an NIL deal, and your college experience is not the experience that you needed or wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree
So
wholeheartedly.
no, that's big. So that's one of my next questions is what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you feel that needs to be addressed in the NIL space?
Yeah, I would say two. I would say there's two. I think the one is that it's only for D1, D1 Power Five, and I hate that so much because again, I think and I said this before, but in a industry like sport, which I'm slowly embracing it to be an industry, a business industry, which is it is what it is. It's very copycat. Like
Yep.
this school did this, so we're gonna do that. They built this $50 million facility, we're gonna build a $51 million. It's very just like who's original?
Right.
Shit, like who trying to lead the way as opposed to just continuing to
Right.
copy each other. The reason I say that is because like D1, non P5, D2, D3, they want to be copycat. They're like, well, I'm not getting a $10,000 deal, I can't do it. And I think
Right.
the misconception is that it's all about money. And I think really getting back to the root of this is like it's not simply about for monetization, but you can also own and leverage your NIL for career opportunities,
Yep.
for service opportunities, for research opportunities, for grad and professional school admissions. Like
Mhm.
that's where it's at. Like on like that's what I'll be focused on. I think the second misconception, and I'll continue to be loud about this until I'm 6 feet under, or they change some shit sooner
Mhm.
than later, is that it's for all athletes. Because it's not.
Yep.
International athletes are not. We now almost 2 years in the game. It's not for them. And I met a woman at Winona State. I want to say her name is Shireen. I hope I'm not saying her
Mhm.
name wrong or mispronouncing, so I'll definitely correct it after the fact if I did. Sis is a national champ, bro. Indoor, outdoor 400 from Malaysia.
Mm. And
National
can't
champ. And can't monetize?
That's crazy.
You're a national champion? That's just one example. You're a national champ? I was like, oh, yeah, no. And that really just brought it back to light. But I think the misconception, again, is that's for all athletes. And again, I want to make sure that I'm very explicit in any conversation I'm allowed or afforded to speak on and say, like, we still got work to do. Like,
Yep. So
we ain't,
so
we ain't hit equity. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so speak a little bit to that. Like, what's the holdup? Like, what is the roadblock that is keeping them from doing it?
Yep. So I'm sure I mentioned this earlier when you asked about the future of NIL. So the reason why international athletes can, if you don't know this by now, yeah, we got more work to do. Not you, audience, we got more work to do. But international athletes cannot monetize their NIL in the U.S. higher education system because of their F1 student visa status. So
Mhm.
any student on an F1 visa cannot um, work a job outside of their OPT or CPT, which are the allowances of an F1 visa studying in the U.S. The
Mhm.
reason why there's holdup is because that's not an NCAA or college sport rule. That's a federal law, like that
Gotcha.
from U.S. Customs and Immigration Services.
Mhm.
The other reason why there's a holdup, particularly both lobbying and passing any sort of provision, if you will, for athletes that even do this in the United States, because again, they can monetize on non-U.S. soil, just not while in the U.S., is
Mhm.
because if they were to win, fingers crossed, allow international athletes to monetize while on U.S. soil, the 20,000 of them that are here and competing in the NCAA,
Mhm.
that's going to open up an opportunity for the other 980,000 international students in the U.S. to monetize as well, whether they're playing the violin, doing research, doing sponsorship deals, etc. Because over 1 million international students in the U.S. So
Mhm.
it's not just a NIL inequity, it's a federal federal law inequity that does
Right.
not allow international students to monetize anything, nor start a business. They can start a business in the U.S., but can't even profit off their own business while in the U.S. I think that's the opportunity, particularly thinking about from the F1 student visa perspective. But then also, we've seen exceptions through international athletes who've gotten the O visa, or the P visa, right? The outstanding ability or the professional athlete visa, which, if we continue to see more international athletes being granted the P1 visa as a professional
Right,
athlete as an exception, if international athletes are P1s or professional athletes, what why wouldn't a domestic athlete be a professional athlete? Which then
right,
goes back to the point about the structure of the NCAA in regards to legit blowing it up and starting over, because again, they're no longer amateur.
right, right, right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And it actually made me think about I can't think of his name from Kentucky.
Oscar, yep.
Yeah, Oscar from Kentucky, and when he went over, he couldn't do it until he went overseas, but he ran it up when they went to that tournament. So no,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy that you can see what he was able to do in that little bit of time, but then
Mm-hmm.
he can't do it while he's over here. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild. Nah, but man, I know we're coming up on our time. I know you're busy. I appreciate you coming on, but I do want you to be able to leave the audience with what you want them to take away from our talk, and tell them what's going on next and how they can find you.
For sure. So, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers on TikTok so I can go live, Fred. So if you got a plug, let me know. But Timothy
Blow
F,
them up, everybody. Blow them up.
please, Timothy Evans Ford, Bryson, Bryson. Again, we'd love to connect with you, continue this conversation. Fred, I mean, I think, again, I value and cherish every opportunity I get to speak in any way, to the public setting, but definitely in on platforms like your own, who I can be myself, keep it a buck, right, and just truly speak to
Absolutely,
what's actually happening without being unfiltered or asked to be quiet.
absolutely,
We're not gonna shut up and dribble. We over that, in many
absolutely.
ways. But it's coming up, yo. So you got a lot of exciting stuff coming up with Mogul still, that can't speak on quite yet. Also, personally speaking, got a few opportunities coming up, particularly in the social entrepreneurship space, as well as the summit that I'm hosting in April. So, Internationalization Athletic Summit, be hosted in late April, bringing together international sport organizations across the world to talk more about their practices and how they support college and professional athletes in their respective arenas. So, confirmed NFL UK, NBA Africa, got a basketball federation Ecuador. I'm about to confirm here soon. So, very exciting time for us. And again, you said, I don't fear the future. I shape it, but I shape it with people like yourself, Reds. And so, anyone who's committed to doing shit differently, being innovative, and really not taking no for an answer, right? People that believe in the impossible. Let's connect and let's get this thing going, because there's more work to be done. I want to do it with people who are committed to doing it in a way that is different, but that definitely centers, prioritizes, and emphasizes blackness along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, I appreciate you coming on. I definitely want to give you your flowers, man. You are definitely innovating, trailblazing. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep
Respect.
going into these spaces and being yourself, because that opens it up for everybody else. Because when you go in and you code switch, you change, you do whatever it is to
Hmm.
be able to fit in, then you made it. You didn't allow somebody else to come in and be their authentic self. So
For
anytime
sure.
you do that, I love what you're doing. I wish you well on your journey, and we're definitely gonna stay in touch. I will link all his stuff in the bottom of this video, so you can connect with them and everything.
One more thing, Fred, real quick, 'cause I'll be remiss if I didn't say this. Two things. One, shout out to Don Staley. I know the girls are competing in the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament this
Absolutely.
weekend. So let's go ahead and stay undefeated. But last but not least, bro, because Warby, we're coming. Fred, I'll give you the discount code. Warby Parker. I'm going to tag you in this clip that Fred's gonna cut for us, y'all. Hit my line. Hit my line so we can get this thing going. Because we love your glasses, love your frames, and want people to get connected with them, especially the black athletes at our NCAA affiliated institutions. So, Fred, thank you again for the opportunity to share today.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all again next time. Thanks.